He's never fought us. Not us united.
Die. Oh! I can so see that. That's it. Welcome to Comics League. I'm Jared, and I'm here with a dead guy. What's up, dude?
What's up, man?
So today, a dead guy and I, we're kind of kinship. We have a sort of a kinship, and that we're two of the only people in Nerdette's circle that like the new 52 in the SnyderVerse. So obviously we had to do stuff together. It just makes sense.
Exactly.
So before we get started, I actually asked as well my guests. So what got you into comics?
What got me into comics? Honestly, I was always drawing. Like I've been drawing since I was like 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was military. We moved out in the middle of San Francisco on an island. I didn't have any friends, didn't know anybody. And I would get a weekly allowance. So I walked up to this commissary. It was a military commissary. You know, we kind of get discount stuff. And they had a comic book rack. So I'd spend my $10 a week on candy and every new comic I could find. And my first break into comics was literally The Weapon X by Harry Windsor. Yes. And dude, that was my first break into comics. Mm-hmm. So after that, it was Wolverine, Batman, Spider-Man. That's all I was reading was those. And I got into X-Men a lot, but that's what got me into it. And I got sucked into it. I'd have to hide them under my bed, so my mom didn't know what I was doing. And after that, I was hooked. And I mean, just all the mains. Obviously, I never really got into Superman very much. Thought he was a little OP and silly, you know. But you know, the mains. You know, obviously, the mains got me into all that.
Yeah. With me, I was taking a comic book drawing class. I still can't draw for anything, but I was like, okay, so let me check this out. And again, this was around the time the new 52 was like a year in, and they just announced on Facebook the Superman and Wonder Woman kiss. So I was like, okay, I'll check this out. Let's see what happens. And I picked up my first arc was Trinity War from Justice League, and I was like, oh, this is dope.
Okay. All right. Cool.
It's a weird storyline, but I was like, but I dig it.
That's the thing with New 52, because we'll have to be a little careful, because when I did get back into it, I was careful. I didn't jump in. I didn't read all of it. You know, there's no way.
No way.
I mean, maybe I know some people that might have read all of it and memorized it, but I stuck with the mains. You know, I jumped right in with Batman, and then that got me into the Justice League. And I think with the New 52, I liked the retelling of the origin of the Justice League. I loved how they told the story, how they met. It was very modern, very realistic. And it just got me into it after that. Then I started getting sucked into each individual story. The Aquaman, which with New 52 Aquaman was probably the best Aquaman they've made so far. They kind of just fixed him. And not so much of a joke. I love the "can you talk to fish" jokes that they kept spreading throughout. I love that. And you know, that segues into later, that would segue into the SnyderVerse, because he implemented so much of the New 52, like little pieces of it here and there.
Clearly inspired by that run.
I mean, he was pulling from a lot, trying to make it work. But I noticed so many New 52 things, like a little 30-second bump here, Superman. A minute bump there. Yes. So, you know, I guess at this point, what'd you start with? Like when you started with the New 52, you were a year in, which, wow, they had already had quite a bit of stories like already started. So what got you in? What started you in there?
I started
besides the Trinity War.
Yeah, I started actually still with Justice League, because my thinking was, let me start with the team books. That way I can identify which characters I like, and then I can go out and buy those books. So I started with him. And at that point, I started collecting the Trinity, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and those, because those three have always been like my favorite. So I just went off of that. Obviously, Court Owls, you can't go wrong with Court Owls. Then Brian Azzarello's Wonder Woman, dude. Oh my gosh.
I don't understand. I understand the backlash. By I know. Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Azzarello, and then I have one of my other trades is signed by David Finch.
Okay.
I was at Comic-Con, they were all there, so I was like, all right.
Why not? I mean, wow, that's something I haven't done in 20-something years too.
That poster over there, that Batman poster is signed by Jim Lee.
Oh,
I almost met him, but he got sick and couldn't be at the con. So I was like, damn.
Jim Lee, Jeff Johns, Scott Snyder, those guys. I mean, you got to throw McFarlane in there because I mean, his Batman run. I know that's not 52 at all, but his Batman run is where he got his cape game, like really got his cape game going. So to me, those guys are god status.
Oh
like,
yeah,
I totally melt just standing in front of these guys. Like, okay, I'm gonna act like a 10-year-old. Please sign this.
Speaking of Johnson Lee,
my breasts.
That Justice League origin book, my favorite moment in the first Justice League, I think, issue is when Green Lantern is going, okay, to Batman. Okay, so can you fly? No. Super strength? No. Wait, you're just a dude in a bat suit, aren't you?
Tell me you're not a dude in a bat suit.
That was just so good. It's so Hal Jordan, first off, but that was like so good.
And I guess what we can do is also, I'd like to, while we're talking about it, compare the animated films to the actual writings, because I've noticed the animated films started coming out maybe 6-7 months after I started reading.
Yeah.
And I think we got the first one was Justice League War,
which is pretty much that arc, like down to the dialogue.
The only thing I didn't like was they skipped out on Aquaman. Like, I felt like, and I see how they did it with the films. They wanted to give him his own little movie, this, that, and the other, but they still could have had him sort of pop up at the end like he did in the comics. And it's this giant shark, like, what is going on?
And he shows up and he goes, who's our leader? I vote me.
And I was just like, dude, that's totally the Aquaman. Because you remember the period right before New 52, we had Aquaman who almost spoke like Thor.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's like,
almost looked like Thor too.
Yeah, he was almost god status and talked proper and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I'm not really digging this. With New 52, we got a drunk who didn't know where he came from, thought his mom left him, his dad was sick. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, we got this guy who's having a rough time, didn't know who he was, and knew he was different. That was really cool to me, and I would have appreciated them throwing him into the movie. But I've noticed that every Batman film we got after that was New 52, and everybody were loving the Batman films. So I'm kind of like, guys, how are you liking the animated films, but didn't like the New 52 run when we got some of the best Batman stories ever? Snyder's run was untouchable. Snyder's run, Snyder and Capullo teaming up together, it's untouchable. It was untouchable. So his
when you think about it,
the Joker run, all that was nuts.
Their first arc is known as like one of the best Batman stories of all time by Batman fans. So it's because I recently completely read The Court of Owls for the first time, like the entire run, and I'm like, now I see what the hype is about. When
you have to start dipping in to all the other books, when you have to start dipping into the Bat Family books, you now have to get into Batgirl, especially in the Night of Owls, that time period where you can't complete the story without jumping into these other books, because now it's bleeding into Nightwing. It's bleeding into, and that was to me one of the best Nightwings ever written too. I hate to say it, but man, they really got their connection down through the New 52, Bruce and Dick's relationship, and he thought of him as a son. Like, I really like how they dug into that, and the Joker, by far best Joker ever written. I mean, they took from way back when the Joker
got the
first
psycho
appeared.
Joker down.
Yeah, when he first appeared, he would do completely dark, psychotic things and giggle and laugh.
Like cutting his face off, and I'm like, oh, jeez.
Blew my mind at the end of that run, because we're reading that first initial comic. I remember what was it? It was issue number 1, I believe, and we were reading that through that issue, and you're thinking you're just getting this common basic story where Joker's pulling some silly crime and Batman beats the hell out of him, takes him to Arkham, and then you think it's all over. And then at the end, you just find his face stuck on this wall, and you're like, what the f? And then you don't hear from him for a year.
How about this? He Jokerizes the Justice League.
Dude, seeing Clark with that smile on his face was one of the coolest things. Like, I don't know, man. Capullo's art, I don't know. He just killed me.
If they ever continue Snyder's movies as a comic book series, I want Capullo to draw it. Either him or Fabok or Jim Lee. One of those will do a fantastic job.
Oh, any one of those. And I do hope they at least give him a chance in the comics, because I was misled a little bit. My brother mistook Scott Snyder for Zack Snyder and was telling me about this whole comic book run that he was doing. Zack Snyder actually wrote some Batman, and I went, I don't think we're talking about the same Snyder. So that kind of got me like doing some research back in the day, and that also helped to get me into it. It was like, wait a minute, this is Scott Snyder, dude. Zack Snyder ain't writing comics.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, man?
Well, because Zack Snyder, we might as well talk about the influence the new 52 Superman played on his Man of Steel movie, because that was clearly a new 52 movie.
That was one of the newest I haven't read a Superman run since with Robert on Pro Teaches Noobs. That's the thing with Superman, as I got fatigue. I got into him. New 52 got me back into him. And granted, I wasn't happy with how they did him. He was young. He was a little cocky and arrogant. He had a temper. But I did like how they sort of already planned on fixing it. They were already getting backlash, you know, like why is Superman like this, you know, blah blah blah. So they
saw
brought
him grow
in,
into the role and stuff. Because remember, what everyone forgets is that they made all the Justice League members younger, so they had to, because realistically, this is how Clark would be if he were that age, but trying to be Superman.
Like what I think they put him in mid-20s.
Yeah, mid-20s or so, yeah.
And Bruce was already significantly older. But the thing is that I guess the origin stories, they didn't change. They didn't mess with Batman. They just sort of left it ambiguous. Like when you were first started reading in the New 52 with Batman, you didn't know where they were going to go with the story. You didn't know if this was a continuation of the Batman we know, or if they're retelling. And they slowly started letting you know, no. A Killing Joke happened in this realm. So that, you know, throughout time reading Batman, you started seeing little hints here and there, letting you know that this is the same Batman. We didn't change him. We just didn't tell you everything. The only thing we changed is he's only been doing this for 5 years at the point of the Justice League origin, where Clark had just started being Superman in that suit. 5
years previous,
and he had
his like beginning.
He'd never even had a real crisis yet. If you can't, you know what I mean? He hadn't fought anything that was whooping his ass. So of course he was arrogant. He walked into this like, man, I can crush people with my bare hands. I don't need, you know, I can call him Bruce Wayne because I can see through his suit. I'm cocky. And I don't know. It kind of
matched. And then Darkseid shows up. He goes, "No, you're not, dude.
No, I'm Death." You know what I mean? Like, I'm Death.
When Darkseid just annihilates the Justice League, I was like, oh.
Just gave them all a piece of hell is pretty much what that was. And Batman, I mean, that's what I liked about the comics versus the movie, because the movie, they kind of made Batman a little more in the movie, and in the comics, he was like, no, I'm gonna stay over here because I'm human.
Yeah,
you should lead. They listen to you. You should lead. Like, I can't, because I'm gonna get crushed if I go over there. And if I die, there's no help for anybody, because I'm the brains behind all this. Because
I'm Batman. So
exactly. It's like your guys are following my strategy. If I die, who's going to think of this shit? But I don't know. I thought it was really cool that the way they made the origin, everybody was so standoffish with each other. And that's how it would really be in not just, hey, we fought the same villain, let's start a team. Like, no,
that's realistically what would happen at any age, really. But what was cool about that is that when Darkseid first shows up and Wonder Woman asks him, why are you here? It's like, I'm here for her. So even back then, the very beginning, they were teasing Grail. So I'm like, knowing how the run goes, I'm like, oh, wow, they really had a plan out, for at least for Justice League.
Oh, that was another thing, though, is... it's where we might differ a little bit. And that's one thing with me and Robert in that same chat. I was like, hey man, listen, I like the New 52, but once Batman sat down in that Morbius chair, they started to lose me a little bit. Like, I started being like, this is getting effing weird. So with the New Gods, I loved Grail, and I loved how, oh man, I'm not gonna lie, I loved how out of nowhere they're having a conversation, because, you know, all this shit starts happening, and Barry just goes, huh! And these hands come out, and she crawls out of his freaking mouth. I'm like, okay, what? And then immediately just starts attacking people without hesitation, puts Batman down one shot, puts everybody down one shot. And then the New Gods, that stuff kind of freaked me out. So my opinion,
breaks Wonder Woman's bracelets, for darn sake.
What was your feel? What is your opinion on the New Gods run?
The Darkseid War is my favorite story from DC ever.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Because I like how it changes the Justice League. Each of them getting god powers. Like Superman becomes inverted, like he the god of strength, but he kind of becomes like
almost Negative Man. To be honest, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, and then Barry becomes the god of death, and I'm like, oh, that's actually first off, the god of death design for Barry looked amazing.
Dude, the Black Racer was badass, man.
And then he kills Darkseid, kills again. But I'm like, oh, okay, that's really cool. And then we finally got to see Darkseid versus the Anti-Monitor, And I'm like,
Yes.
and then you have Jessica Cruz, who's another fantastic character that started through this. She goes to Wonder Woman. Who do we fight? Who do we fight against here? They're both bad options.
Yeah, it's like pick the lesser of two evil. If we don't kill the Anti-Monitor, I mean he's the anti of everything. So he will, as his existence is destroying things around him. You know, like air molecules around him are just turning into antimatter. It's pretty cool. But if we don't kill Darkseid, we'll enslave everybody on Earth. And it's like it's just what do we do? What do we do? I thought it was cool that the Black Racer. The Antimatter fused the Black Racer with Barry Allen, who is the opposite of death. Yeah, like Barry Allen is the opposite of death. The loss that he experienced, and his whole purpose is to stop that from happening to anybody else ever. You know, like, so his whole purpose is to stop people from dying, stop crime. He really cares. Out of all the Justice League, he's that guy that really cares about everybody, and he's stuck to death, meaning he has to kill somebody. Death is making him like a life must be taken, or blah. So Barry is about to sacrifice himself, and that's when the whole Jessica Cruz thing, when she went to
fantastic
selflessly do it.
Introductions to a new Green Lantern ever, because here's the problem with Green Lanterns, that for the most part they're just clones of Hal. She was very different. Like you have an agoraphobic Green Lantern that has to overcome her fear every time she leaves the house. No, that is cool. That is a compelling narrative. I
loved her whole character for the sheer fact that they made her have PTSD. Well, they did it with Stewart a little bit too. Stewart had PTSD, but his led to him making better decisions. Jessica had anxiety, crippling anxiety, couldn't leave the house. She had serious mental disorders, and through the power ring, which that's also a really cool story, that she's technically not a Lantern on Earth, but you know what I mean? She got that power ring, which had that dude's soul in it. Horthol or something. Volthoom. Thank you. That was a tough one for me. I'm like, Horthol, something weird. I don't know.
It's Green Lantern. They have really complicated names.
But that tied that into the Crime Syndicate, which I hadn't read.
Forever Evil, baby.
Yes, I had to go back and
that's
read
signed
Forever
by David Finch as well, by the way.
Oh my God. Okay, you're gonna have to show me some of this stuff. That run, which like I said, with the New 52, you can't just go right into that. It's gonna lead you back to wow. Okay, that's we're gonna be doing that run, by the way. It's just I'm a little behind. Actually, I'm very behind. There's no talking shit on that. But to me, going back and reading that gave that sustenance. Now, Jessica Cruz for me had even more depth, because that was the ring she had, and I was like, that's fucking cool. So when she went to sacrifice herself, and instead it took his soul, and then she was free to use the power ring as an actual Lantern ring because that soul was gone, dude, that was really neat. And at that point, she's been one of my favorite Lanterns. Like,
oh hell yeah,
and me and Robert get into it a lot, because I was like, well, I mean, New 52 gave us some great Lantern stories. And he goes, well, that's because it built up before that. And I was like, they never changed the Green Lantern. They never revamped his origin. They never said everything that happened up until New 52 still happened with Hal.
The problem with that is that
people didn't know about him.
The problem is that you're telling me Blackest Night happened when most of the characters that were very important for Blackest Night don't exist in this universe.
Right. That's what that's
my one problem with the New 52 is that they crammed Batman and Green Lantern into like a 5-year time period. And I'm like, what? This doesn't work.
These cats. Well, okay, it does work. Hear me out on the Lantern. Batman, it makes him. Holy shit, you had a hell of a 5 years. I don't know how you're even mentally stable right
Jason Todd, and I'm like, what?
Holy crap, dude. You've lost a Robin a year. Although,
Bane's back.
Here's my thing, though. I'm not sure, because people are still considering Carrie Kelly part of that timeline, when I'm like, that's impossible. How Carrie Kelly didn't come along until Bruce had retired and came back. So Carrie Kelly doesn't come before Jason Todd.
Plus, Dark Knight Returns is an alternate universe too.
Exactly, and I think it's an Elsewhere is what they're going to call it now. Is that new word they made up, which is clever. But they already had multiverse. That's all you had to say was multiple Earths, multiverse. Anything you write, okay, it's cool. Now this is just Earth 671. It's all good. We can make it all matter. Shit, man. I totally lost my original point.
You were talking about why the 5-year thing works for Lantern.
It works for Lantern because, hear me out on this one. Traveling through space, being next to big stars, black holes, so on, etc., affects time. So he could be around, say, a bigger star than us. Or, say Oa has a bigger star, meaning gravity, time, the effect of time is all different. 30 minutes on this planet could be 7 days on ours, so on and so forth, and vice versa. Traveling at the speed of light, traveling faster than the speed of light can reverse time. So for me, him being a space traveler and spending a lot of time out there could make it to where all this stuff happened in a 5-10 year period. Because I know, like, towards the end of New 52, it had been 10 years. I know they skipped about 5 years through the New 52.
The problem with that,
but that could be giving them too much. You know what I mean? Like,
but Blackest Night happened on Earth.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's the one problem.
Touche salesman. You're right.
That's the one. If that didn't happen on Earth, that would be like, okay, that could have happened just in space somewhere. But like Wonder Woman became a star sapphire, so it's pretty important there.
Yeah, you're right. And of all Star Sapphires, Wonder Woman might have been probably the coolest. But you know what I mean? Like, it's a little, not so much depth on that.
My one problem with Blackest Night is that Superman did not get a Blue Lantern ring.
A blue? Oh, yeah.
Like, why?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, it made sense. It made sense for the fear, though.
It made sense. Yeah, but
it made sense. And then even then, the Red Lanterns. That the sheer fact that they got their own arc, they got their
Supergirl
own
became a red. They finally did something cool with Supergirl.
Well, I mean, the dark side thing was cool, but that was a given. But to have her get a red ring, it suited her. It suited her. I'm sorry, but it did. And I was like, man, okay, let's see the trouble.
How about when Clark was turning into Doomsday? They took the death of Superman type of thing and did something new. That's what I liked about the New 52 is that they took these storylines but did them in different ways.
And again, I was also misinformed. And I thought I was misinformed. But after doing a little bit of homework, I realized, because my understanding was we had Flashpoint, then we get New 52.
Yeah.
So is New 52 the same ripple? Is New 52 what we got after Barry fixed Flashpoint? You could only fix it so much. You know how that works. You with time, and you can fix it close, but you're never going to fix it to where it would have been if you hadn't with it in the first place. So I'm thinking we get New 52 from Flashpoint, and then later I heard, right before Rebirth is what I'm getting, is that technically this universe and timeline still exist, whether people want to be happy about it or not. New 52 happened, and Rebirth happened, and this is still the same timeline. But then I also heard Dr. Manhattan had did a soft reset. And to me, I haven't found anything solid on this. After doing some research, I haven't had anybody tell me this is 100% fact. This is just speculation. Yada.
What they established in Doomsday Clock is that when Barry went back in time, it was supposed to go back completely to pre-New 52. It's just Dr. Manhattan went in and sort of changed a few things, and that's how he got the New 52. And then Doomsday Clock, he basically undid all that.
Okay. And then everything goes back to how it was before. And that's when we get basically the new Rebirth stories. Okay, cool. I was a little confused because I haven't found anything solid. I always found just people having discussions about it, but nobody that did any of the writing is telling you 100%. Yeah, that's what happened.
And Doomsday Clock took 10 years to come out, so it makes sense. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like,
I think it's from the backlash. I think a lot of fans got into it. And here's the thing is, Batman did well. Obviously, the Joker storylines did very well. It was dark. It was creepy. It was freaking scary. No crap talk about that. But I think it was the Superman's. Wonder Woman wasn't very well received either. And I thought it was a very good retelling.
The Superman and Wonder Woman book, because that sold over 100,000 copies, and then DC undid that just to satisfy the people that wanted Clark with Lois. And Charles was very obvious on this. He said it wasn't about sales or anything because this book was selling great. So that shows me DC is self-sabotaging as hell. I'm like, what the heck?
It's like, and the thing is it was almost a 50-50 tear. You had people that were like, this makes too much sense. He probably would have gotten with Wonder Woman, realized that their egos were too big and it didn't work, and then found Lois later. That made sense. But people were also saying it was too easy. This is too easy. Why, these are like a power couple, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, come on, Wonder Woman would be attracted to him. He's a god.
It's funny because whenever they say it's too easy, I'm like, oh, so you're admitting to me that they belong together if you're saying they're too easy.
But it just makes too much sense.
What people forget is that in the second two arcs of that, they changed writers, and then Tomasi completely sabotaged the book because the first two arcs fantastic because you have Superman and Wonder Woman dealing with their differences because she's a warrior, she kills people, and she likes to be very honest and very open about herself. Clark is obviously Clark, so he has a secret identity and something. She's not used to that, so they have to deal with that. They have to team up to fight Zod, which I'm like, dope.
That was badass.
Arc 2, she has to almost kill him because he's turning into Doomsday. Arc 3 is where we get like the Arc 3 and 4 is where it gets sabotaged because they retcon that this is when he finds out that she became the god of war and he's not okay with it, even though in Arc 1 he was okay with it. So I'm like, what is going on here? This doesn't like that. That's why when people say, oh, it really got bad, I'm like, Arcs 1 and 2 were good. Arcs 3 and 4 were where it got down the drain. And
I
so
think
people,
they already
by the way,
knew. They already knew they were canceling it, and they were like, don't put too much effort into writing this. It's done.
I did a Instagram post about this, and people were like, "There was a Superman and Wonder Woman comic." I'm like, "Yeah, it was a big deal."
Yeah. It caused a ripple in the DC fans. I remember that. I remember hearing about it. It's for me. My buddy was telling me. It was my brother and my buddy were telling me about the New 52, and they were like, "Man, you need to get back into comics." And I remember seeing like, I think Justice League, Doom, Public Enemies, seeing these animated films that were coming out in the early 2000s. I want to say if I'm correct on that.
One of those two. Yeah.
They were coming out and I was like, dude, okay, the animated shows or movies or at least films have gotten a lot better since the shows that I were watching back in the day. And that sort of started sucking me back in. So what am I missing in comics? What's going on in comics? And I kept seeing this creepy picture of the Joker on my comic book stores posted up. And I'm like, all right. So my brother's finally like, well, Zack Snyder's been writing in the New 52. And I went, okay, I liked Dawn of the Dead. We'll check it out, So, I go in there and go to buy it. And I initially got right into Justice League 1, bought the first few issues of Batman, got the Night of Owls or the Court of Owls series, or at least the start of it. And that sucked me in at that point. And then, of course, the Lanterns. There's some things I avoided. I feel bad, but I did kind of avoid the Red Hood until later. Like I kind of went back with the Red Hood because of the origin story.
They changed the whole, he's not brought back by someone punching reality.
Right.
That's the most comic book thing ever, by the way. Punching reality to bring someone. The stupid thing about that, it only brought Jason back to life. No one else, just Jason.
No, right. And to me, I like how the film did it better. I think they kind of closed that chapter up a little bit better and made it to where it made sense that he was a little crazy at first and had to put a whole new pathway together in his brain because obviously the Lazarus pit, what is it, dilithium or something like that?
One of those. It
heals your brain. I think we saw that with Bruce. Actually, we did when what was it? What's his face crushed his skull? Dr. Death, right? Crushed his skull. And then when his brain healed, he lost that trauma healed and he lost the death of his parents. He lost his memories of being Batman. And then the Justice League is coming back for him. Like, dude, we need you back. You're Batman. We need you back. And he's like growing a beard and he's happy. And Alfred's like, no, don't remember, Bruce. That was so cool, man. Like when they show that, the panel I'm talking about, you see the grandfather clock. And Bruce is already starting to know, like, I need to, what is this? You've been keeping this from me for years. What's going on? And Alfred's almost standing in front of it like a panicked mother. He's like, please don't remember. You've been happy. You've been living a life. You can't go back. He had to. So, and I think that was during Gordon's. When Gordon was Batman in the suit.
That was weird. You also had Superman on a Harley going across the country because there's no powers. And I'm like, well, this is dumb. I'm like, what the hell? That was like DCU, the era DC wants you to forget.
Yes. That to me, that because you can't avoid it. You can't have New 52 and pre New 52 and Rebirth without Gordon in that damn robot Batman suit.
The one series that was good around that time period when Gordon was Batman was the Batgirl Burnside series. That was dope when they completely reinvented Batgirl.
See, now that's a regret. I didn't read that. So
I just started reading it. Yeah.
So is that the new Batgirl that we have nowadays? Is that her, like the story that they're sticking with? I
legit didn't know that was New 52 when I picked up the trade. I'm going through it. I'm like, oh, I like this. Wait, Gordon Batman.
Wait a minute. What?
In one area.
What? And then, I mean, to have such a cool plot too. That was the thing, is I would have preferred to have Batman in that plot.
Yeah,
it would have
I
made
know.
more sense because it was a cool plot. And I was like, wait a minute, where's Ivy? Ivy should have been part of this. She should have been part of that. But other than that, and yeah, I guess you're right. They brought Bane back, but I guess if you're going by New 52 rules, that never happened, but yet Batman's life did, and Hal Jordan. So that's what I mean. Like, I think New 52, where it got people and where they ended up, like true fans, we're just confused. We're like, we're not really sure what's going on with the timeline and what's canon, what isn't, what happened, what didn't. And it took a long time to get there.
The problem with it also is that you had like George Perez writing action and then Grant Morrison writing Superman, or I may have that flipped. But the point is that like they weren't talking to each other, even though one's supposed to be writing stories that take place 5 years before like Morrison's run. So really there was no coordination in the New 52. If there were, they could have had like a tighter universe.
Right. It makes you wonder, though, like, because this is also some speculation I came across. And what I think is they were taking with New 52, they wanted to take a whole different approach than how all comics, even Marvel, had done, where, you start a series, start an event, you start your new arc, you build up to your event, and then you have your event, and then you start a whole new arc, bleed, blah, bloobity, bleed. You try to stretch that out for a year if you can. With New 52, they were like, we don't care what you're doing. Just pick up a book and read. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. It doesn't matter if you've ever read Batman before. It doesn't matter if you're a Batman
starting
fan.
At 1.
Yeah, grab a book and just start reading. And it doesn't matter who or what you're reading. It'll all tie together and it'll all make sense in the end, which it didn't. But still.
Which is why I will always say the New 52, no matter how it turned out, was a great idea, because if you start at 1, it's because you don't have to read 70 plus years of Batman in order to get into Batman. It's just Batman number 1. There you go.
And with Batman, even with Superman, I gotta admit, because it wasn't my favorite read, but even with Superman, they suck you right in.
Yeah.
Like, instead of starting off with Batman in the Batcave sitting at his computer, like blah blah blah, Batman number 1, New 52, he is in the middle of fighting how many villains? Putting his foot through Clayface.
That's the most Batman thing ever.
The first page, he's punching Two-Face. So it's just literally like, okay.
He has the Owl Buster Iron Man suit where he goes, "Get out of my cave." And I'm like, yes! Dude, this is the most badass, because
they go
that's
right into
the thing. They made the superheroes badass, like Superman, the Justice League. It's like when Darkseid grabs Superman in the first arc, he goes, "Kryptonian, you are coming with me." And Superman's like hell I am. He just headbutts him. I'm like, yes.
Dude, but even then, I also forgot is the origin for Shazam.
Oh yeah.
Was classic. Was classic. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's the movie Shazam. Yeah. It's that arc by Jeff Johns. There you go.
I noticed it. I was watching the film, and that's why I love the film. I sat down and giggled and laughed all the way through it, and was like, okay, the actor they got, both actors.
Yeah, fantastic.
Actually, all the actors. I'm not going to talk any smack. It was cool to see dude from Walking Dead in there. Like, I'm like, oh, hell yes. It
would have been nice to see Henry Cavill in that movie as Superman, but they had to.
This is true. Yes, this is true. But my thing is that was the New 52 Shazam.
It was.
Origin. I mean, they played
a lot of that movie.
Bit, but...
A lot of that universe. Actually, let's transition to that now. 99% of the movies were with a New 52. That's part of why I liked it, because it was just a live action version of my universe.
Exact. Well, yeah. And now it makes me wonder: is this why the films weren't well received?
Well, they weren't well received because the studio routinely sabotaged them, like having Zack Snyder cut out 30 minutes of Batman vs. Superman when people admit that putting those 30 minutes back in explains a lot. Or let's not forget what happened with Justice League.
Yeah.
Had they not released, had they not sabotaged Justice League, we would still be we would have just finished the SnyderVerse, and they would have just been rebooting.
Right. And here's my thing: is if they hadn't have done that, and they just would have let Whedon and Snyder work together. Yeah. Hear me out on that. It would have been a perfect film.
Yeah.
Whedon would have balanced out Snyder's desaturation, his darkness, the way he likes to keep things. You got to turn your brightness up on your TV to see what's going on. And he would have kept some of the silly, versus Snyder would have been like, Batman doesn't make jokes like that. So they would have balanced each other out, and you might have got the colorfulness from the suits that I was looking for. That's the only thing I liked about the Justice League was the colors. That was it.
It was a little too saturated.
It was saturated,
and a little too though.
But I think he would have, Snyder would have put it at a balance.
True.
Like, because Joss would have been like, don't take all the colors away, they're colorful, and it would have balanced it out. And I felt Joss was really in tune with New 52. I felt like he was more in tune versus Snyder wanting to just finish the stories he had already started telling with Man of Steel and BVS.
That's true.
I'm not putting Snyder down. Snyder cares about these comics. I know he does. But to me, the Snyder cut was very dark. Very dark. I mean, not just colors. I mean, it was a dark film. Like,
well, you're bringing in Dark Side, and
yes.
Whenever you bring in Apocalypse, you can't have everyone go, okay, gee whiz.
But I guess it's just to go back.
And the thing about it is that
that was probably Cyborg's best origin story ever written.
Oh, even Nerdette, who is not a Snyder fan, she's like, yeah, that they nailed Cyborg on that.
Dudes, from the New 52, I mean, that was it. They pretty much took his origin story from New 52. Period. End of story. You can't even.
Except instead of like a mother box, there was a car accident. But yeah,
100%. Exactly. And yeah, they didn't show the accident like they did in Justice League Origins, like the first Darkseid Crisis. They didn't show him, actually touching the mother box and then opening up. They just made it a car accident. But still, beside the point, you see him strapped to that wall. He uses the mother box tech and the nanos to fix him. It was his origin story. He came out of it angry with his father. What have you done to me? Why didn't you just let me die?
Legit,
blah, blah, blah.
That's a new.
That was New 52.
Legit.
And the thing was, but I loved how in the film, even in Snyder still did it. Even towards the end, we got Victor back. We got Victor where he's going booyah. Like he started saying stuff like, I'm like, yes, okay, this is. He started accepting who he was. He started accepting he was part of a team. That's the only thing I liked about the end of I guess the Justice League 2 was the jokes they were cracking at the end with Superman when they separated the box and they were just sort of laying there and he's like, my whole body hurts, blah blah blah. And Wonder Woman, I thought that was kind of cool. Like that was okay.
They still cracked jokes in the Snyder cut. I think it was a little more balanced though, because with Whedon, it was pretty much an Avengers movie with just these skins. So I'm like, that's one of the chief reasons why I think that movie failed, because you can't have like the sensibilities of the Avengers on the Justice League because they're ultimately two different universes. You can't do that.
Yeah, no, and the overdubs. Like I got so tired of the overdubs in the Avengers movies. Like, how are you riding a motorcycle going beep beep? Excuse me, I almost walked out. I was like, yeah, okay. Captain America's in the middle of a fight with a giant robot.
Yeah.
Right. And he's going, come on, man. And he's like making jokes. And I'm like, okay, you guys with the overdubs, give me a break. And I did notice that with Justice League. I mean, you got Batman cracking jokes like, geez, he's tall. Like,
or something is definitely bleeding.
I didn't bring my sword. I mean, come on, guys. Like, this is every 10 minutes somebody's cracking a joke to ease the tension. When I was like, fights are supposed to be tense. And
or when Wonder Woman, when Flash fell into Wonder Woman and he's lying on top. I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, this is so dumb. It's kind of funny. The DC directors ignored Justice League and went off of the Snyder cut because the Whedon cut was like an insult to all their characters. Well, this is very obvious on that. And I'm like, well, yeah, Wonder Woman specifically, they butchered her in that movie.
Oh, Nerdette's gonna hate me for this. That was the one thing I never thought Gal was a good casting.
Whoa!
I mean, she is a beautiful woman. She's a beautiful woman. Or hear me out on this one, I guess. Why couldn't, with any of them, they just put some contacts in? I mean, is that weird? Because to me why was that so important to me? I don't know. But to me, I think it gave them more of their personality. Like you could have given Henry Cavill some blue contacts. Did they?
Well, because he kind of had like grayish eyes and stuff. So I'm like, oh, they kind of did that. But what I love about Gal is that she captured really the badass version of Wonder Woman. Like when she's fighting Steppenwolf and he goes, this one's mine. She goes, I belong to no one. And I'm like, ugh! I mean, when she first shows up and she's like doing this, I'm like, yes.
I didn't hate her. But I guess my thing is I felt like whoever was writing or choreographing her fight scenes in particular, you had all these opportunities to do some cool stuff with her, right? Like cool stuff with Wonder Woman. And instead she's going on like almost on all fours, blocking machine gun bullets, where I would have just had her fly right at the dude and beat the shit out of him or throw him through a ceiling or something. You know, like Wonder Woman would have done in comics.
Though, but at the end of it, she was like, poof.
I felt like even in her solo movies, I felt like some of the action scenes were just kind of bad choreographed. Not it's not any fault to her. You know what I mean? It's just like they chose funny fighting positions or, you know, odd type of fighting. To me, would have been like, well, I mean, let's just show how badass she is with that sword. And, you know, and again, that's another New 52 Wonder Woman thing, is we get Sword and Shield Wonder Woman speaking
that's
like
why
a proper Wonder Woman. That's
why
really
it took
cool.
me forever to get the Hot Toys for Wonder Woman, because I had to get the BVS one because they didn't reissue it for the Snyder cut, and my only option was the 1984 Wonder Woman, which all has the lasso, and I'm like, nope.
No, because they totally diverted like for a really long time, and
no
I guess
reason
another
to.
thing is, why couldn't she fly? That kind of bothered me a little bit.
Actually,
sort of.
In every movie she flew, in every Snyder movie, because we know she drops down to save Bruce from Doomsday, and then in that scene where it's that slow motion splash page of the Justice League and Batman's in the Batmobile, and they're all doing this in slow motion. Wonder Woman is flying right beside them. So
fair enough. Good shot.
She was flying.
They just never really actually show her, like, you know, Superman.
They could have done. So speaking of Superman, that scene where he shows up and beats the crap out of Steppenwolf, and then all of them are pinballing him back and forth. I'm sorry, that is the coolest Superman moment in film I think we've had in a long time.
Dude, they fixed him.
Yeah,
I mean, okay, granted, I understood the black suit. He should have been in the black suit. I get it. Yeah. No arguments there. Because, I mean, if you're going to do Death of Superman and he's going to do Return of Superman, he's got to be in the black suit.
Because if he didn't do that, the fans, the Superman purists would complain. Exactly.
Wait a minute. Why is he in the blue suit? Well, okay.
That was about the Whedon cut. I'm surprised no one complained about that.
As soon as he said, is this guy still giving you trouble? And came down and punched the hell out of him, like at Superman speed flying down. I was grinning ear to ear like they fixed him. That's the Superman I grew up with, standing there like this. As Steppenwolf's trying to punch him, he's just dodging it with a tiny smile on his face. Like, you're nothing. I'm not impressed at all. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that they fixed him.
In the Snyder cut, he didn't say, is this guy still bothering you? He just came down and, like, punched him.
See, I guess that's what I appreciated about the Justice League, was the end Superman, the stuff he was saying, the lines that he had was Silver Age Superman. They sort of fixed. So that's what I mean. Again, that balance between the two films would have probably made people more happy if you'd have done all that.
But the thing is that
intermixed.
Superman isn't that way anymore. He hasn't, arguably, he hasn't been like that. Is this guy still bothering you? Since Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Mm-hmm. True.
Post Crisis would not do that. I know because I'm reading Man of Steel, and if you read John Byrd's Man of Steel, that is Man of Steel by Zack Snyder, like legit right there, almost shot for shot.
Dude, Snyder, when he read that, was like, I'm doing this.
Yeah,
I'm doing this.
That's a super. And what people forget is that he was actually supposed to make a Superman trilogy like Nolan did, and then Warner Brothers was like, "Nope, you're making the Justice League," and he's like, "And you have to do it in 3 movies." What?
It's like, we don't even have a Justice League Batman yet. Like, I haven't even done Batman yet. And you got to have the trilogy, the founding members. Actually, Lantern was a founding member. Flash is a founding member. We didn't get any of those films. And they should have done it like, they should have followed the Marvel formula. We should have got an individual, at least 1 or 2 individual movies showing you these particular characters, and then do Justice League.
Should have at least done a movie for each of the Trinity, and then I think you could go on to a Justice, because that's what they did with Marvel. They had Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man, kind of Hulk, and then the Avengers. And there you go.
Kind of Hulk,
because
we got him, but they fired him.
It's kind of but I mean, it's kind of on the table, off the table, if that's still canon. So I'm like, oh, okay.
It's actually official. If you remember the line in when they were talking about New York, and Banner said, "Last time I was in Harlem, I sort of broke it."
Oh, okay, yeah.
Edward Norton is canon Hulk. But the thing is Edward Norton kept coming to the set trying to rewrite the script and take over directing the movie, so they fired him. They literally fired him from the Marvel universe. So then he suggested Mark Ruffalo.
Okay.
So Mark Ruffalo wouldn't have got that spot if Ed Norton was like, "Okay, I get it. I'm too big for my britches. I'm out. But I got this guy who might be really good." So then they talked to Mark, and it took over.
As Bruce. I hate what they did story-wise with turning him just basically into Smart Hulk instead of like, I would have loved an Endgame if Savage Hulk just showed up and like fought Thanos as a rematch. That would have been so great.
Dude, I was unhappy with Bannerhawk. No, that was so weird for me to accept. And we are getting away from New 52. We're on a complete different publisher now.
Yeah, it's fine.
But you can't not compare.
Yeah.
Because DC should have, no offense, they should have followed some of that same formula because Marvel was successful.
Again,
and
Snyder was, but Warner Brothers kept saying, no, we're not. First off, the ironic thing about Warner Brothers is that they were trying to copy Marvel, but they didn't copy what made Marvel successful. They were like, okay, so Marvel had those first couple of movies to establish the characters, and then there you go. It's like, here's the thing. My one problem with like movies like BVS, the whole scene where like Wonder Woman's on her computer and she sees like the clips of the Justice League members, that should have been the post-credit scene.
True.
That would have worked way better as a post-credit scene. And they should not have shown her in the trailer because I think it would have hit so much harder when she drops down and saves Bruce if we didn't know Wonder Woman was in this movie.
Yeah, make it a surprise appearance, and that way people in.
If there's ever a surprise for a DC movie, it's seeing the right. First off, that shot with them fighting Doomsday as it pans out the Trinity for the first time on theaters, I was going nuts because I'm like, oh yeah,
dude,
and you had the Junkie XL score. I'm like,
dude.
yeah.
I was about to say it was Zimmer teaming up with Junkie X. Zimmer's a god to me. I'm a music guy. I write. I score.
You have this.
Yeah.
So she comes down and this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was.
Wow. That's again because I was wondering what are they going to do for the Wonder Woman theme, and then when that comes on, I'm like, yep. There you go. He understood the homework assignment.
Yeah. He's like, well, what I'm gonna need is some kind of tribal. I got the drums, if you can handle like that digital techno stuff. Dude, I'm telling you, man, Zimmer, I've been a huge fan of his since Interstellar. I've been following his music and Man of Steel, almost every Snyder movie he's been involved with. I wasn't crazy about the Wonder Woman theme, but I think it's just because it had been overplayed by the time we get her movie. You know what I mean? Like we'd seen and heard it several times.
My
and
one
by the time you
complaint
get to Justice League, I'm like, I don't want to hear the Wonder Woman theme anymore. But yeah.
My one complaint of the Snyder Cut is that it plays that whole like incantation theme whenever Wonder Woman does anything, and so I'm like, that's my one complaint. I'm like, okay, so it's okay, a little much, guys.
Yeah, that was that's what I was getting at. By the time I got to that point, I was a little sick of hearing that. But what I did appreciate about his work was how he implemented in BVS. At the very beginning, when Bruce is giving his The Beautiful Lie speech, how he implemented Danny Elfman, the animated series Batman theme, and his Dark Knight theme, all mixed together into one theme as he's getting lifted up through the bats. And I get chills talking about it. Yeah. Like, that's how beautiful his music is, that he cared about these characters too, but also went back to all the other music, contacted Danny Elfman, contacted all these people like, can I mix this in with this score? And they're like, yeah, it's Batman. It belongs to WB. You can have it. Like, yeah. I thought that was
Batman.
Genius.
Ben Affleck is Batman, dude. He's the one dude, and actually, Kevin Conroy backs this up. He goes, "Conroy's the first. Batfleck is the first live-action Batman where he got both Bruce and Batman done to a T."
I mean, minus the. I guess he didn't directly kill anyone. Let's just put it that way.
He kind of did, but when you look at the story and when you consider, this is why, granted, I'm not the biggest fan that the dead Robin is Dick Grayson. But when I look at the story that they were trying to tell, which Robin's death would conceivably lead Batman to take this dark path? It was the one that he considers his son, like you said before. So if his son dies, he's like, you know what? Screw this.
Oh, man. Oh, you know what? I have a question because the one thing I missed was I didn't read a lot of it. I went back and skimmed over because I had to. Was Teen Titans, New 52 Teen Titans. The question is that's some of the responses I've got when I ask people about it. So I don't even know. I've only gone by a lot of the animated films and skimming over. Was that Damian Robin that was in the New Titans and the New 52 Titans?
No, that was Tim Drake. Except they made it so Tim Drake was never Robin. He was Red Robin. Okay. That's how they tried to explain how Batman had like 5 Robins in 5 years.
Okay,
they just said Tim Drake was never a Robin. He had his own identity called Red Robin.
So then and the Titans, I guess, in the New 52 universe, Tim Drake was never actually a Robin.
But they later undid that because they got a massive backlash for that.
Yeah, that couldn't make any sense. Think about that. How was Grayson only Robin for a few years before he came Nightwing? Think about that. 5 years? Well, how old was Dick when he brought him on?
Yeah, I know. There's no way he
11? So
beyond
or maybe
that,
10?
Jason Todd dies, and he comes back like a couple of months later. It's like a shorter Red Hood,
So
kind of like
is
in
he-
Titans.
Is he getting Robins when they're like 18 or 19? And
Yeah.
then, you know what I
You
mean?
would
Like,
have
no,
to at that point. Yeah, I'm like,
that's
what
not
the-
a Robin. What 18 or 19-year-old young man's going to dress in that outfit and have
I
to
know,
censor
exactly.
himself? Like, come on, guys.
I need you to dress in a Speedo and booties. What?
Here's this yellow cape, and no, it doesn't have a hood yet. I'm sorry. To me, it's like that 18-year-old's gonna be like, nah, man, where's my bat suit? Nah, man. But I mean, I guess we did get Grayson Batman out of some of the new 52 too. That probably one of my favorite. It was, but I mean, I'm talking to the Joker.
Yeah, yeah.
Not the Joker Wars, but I guess it would be more Endgame, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where he tricked him and put Grayson in the suit so he could go find the Lazarus pit and close it up. Yeah, that to me,
I love that. That Grant Morrison.
We got it one more time, you know, like he gets
Mhm.
to break that mask and he pulls the mask off to see Grayson underneath there. I was like, yes, one more Grayson Batman. That was one of my favorite stories. So it was cool to bring that back, especially after them probably never fully recovering from thinking their faces were cut off and about to be fed to them. Oh my god!
Which sounds like something the Joker would do. When you had Joker's daughter who actually ate the face, I'm like, this is creepy.
Okay, that was one thing I wasn't crazy about with the new. It was the Joker's daughter. I thought the Joker's daughter thing was a little out there, but they did get pretty out there with a lot of stuff. That's why I kind of avoided. Don't read this. Don't read this. This gets way out there. Somebody told me to stay away from the Red Hood and the Outlaws because they screwed up his origin too a little bit.
A little bit. I don't know. I never read that book. I was like, nah,
okay, so that's what I mean. Like I was told to pick and choose, and they're like, if you like Batman, some of the best Batman you're gonna read. If you like the Justice League, cool origin story, but then it sort of starts getting strange. And to me, it didn't start getting strange till Darkseid Wars. But I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Like you took very different things away. I thought the whole New Gods thing just freaked me out. It was just too much for me to take in, and I wasn't happy about Shazam. Like the way they kind of just didn't finish his story. They didn't.
And they forgot about it. Yeah, exactly.
They were like, okay, well, I guess it's over. He's still Shazam.
Oh,
and they sort of just leave it like that. And I'm like, but I mean, he was losing powers when we talked to him. His gods were leaving him left and right. Like, where's he at?
I almost forgot one of the best new 52 books, Deathstroke.
Oh God!
When they made him young again, and they ends up fighting Wonder Woman, I'm like, oh, this is so good.
I forgot about
Lobo alongside the Wildcats.
Dude, I forgot about that. I completely forgot about that. The retelling of Deathstroke, and I never understood the title New 52 because I thought there's only 52. There's a lot more than 52. No. They started with 52.
And they canceled a bunch of books before they started. So it wasn't even New 52 when it started coming out.
So I'm like, what are you calling it the New 52 for? Because I'm reading 100 new stories here. Yeah, this is we've passed 52, a year ago. By the time you get to year, what is it? I think year 3. I think they did 5 year of New 52 and in their timeline. I don't think it lasted 5 years, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think it was 5 years DC timeline. By the time you get towards the end and they were closing it up and starting to open the door to Rebirth, that's, I guess for me, it was the Darkseid Wars. When Batman finally got out of the chair, which I was happy. Why did it take Hal that long to be like, it's willpower? Here, borrow my ring.
I have no idea.
I don't know why it took that long. I mean, Hal's a really smart guy.
I liked it about Batman in the chair as a temporary thing. Obviously, I would not be fine with it if they just Batman's in this really dope chair now. I'm like, no, that was another reason why I liked it. It was a temporary thing. It was just one thing for the story, and then they were done with it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Where they suck you in with the 2 Jokers thing, like literally, how long did it take Hal for us to get the 3 Jokers story after him going, no, that's not possible. But then they don't tell you.
It's still up in the air if 3 Jokers is canon too. So I'm like, what the heck, dude?
What did you do to us, guys? Like, and I mean, I think it was a year later, close to it, where you're like left hanging when he's like, chair, who's the Joker? What's the Joker's real name? And he's like, no, that's not possible. And then they don't tell you what's not possible. Wait a minute,
it's pretty much like, here's what happened. He legit goes, okay, so there are 3 Jokers. Okay, anyway, dun, 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 dun. He's like, okay, I'm going to go take care of this right now.
And then they get, the Pale Man.
Yeah.
I was a little crazy. I wasn't crazy about how they were doing that. I was like, are they going to Pennywise the hell out of the Joker right now? We've already got an immortal clown that's lived on the planet for this long. So they did leave that a little ambiguous too, didn't they? Towards the end there,
I
you're
will
not
say-
real sure if there was a pale man who wasn't the Joker from that particular comic, or you know what I mean? Like
what I would have done for the new 52, I wouldn't have done. I would have still done a rebirth like thing. I wouldn't have wiped out the new 52. I would have just placed it as DC's version of Marvel's Ultimate Universe and just said, okay, it's an alternate thing. If you like this universe, if you like these alternate stories, they're there,
yeah,
and you can go back to the original timeline so everyone gets what they want.
that's honestly that's how I would have handled it. I mean, that's the thing when you bring up something like the multiverse. You now have options. You have
you
options.
invented the multiverse, guys.
You've got
Because
other
if
dimensions,
you wipe it
other
out,
Earths.
it sounds very. It honestly came off to me as a little vindictive. So I'm like, okay, that's if you don't like that, fine, put it on an alternate Earth. They did that in Doomsday Clock. They said Earth 52, and I'm like, thank you.
Oh, you're right, and that would explain the new 52. They kind of made it. They fixed it. They fixed it.
They explained it, but yeah, that's the thing. I'm like, you have the multiverse. You don't have to wipe it out. Just move to another Earth, or like have it so like some type of multiverse BS happens and splits the Earths or something like that.
And I guess another thing is New 52 brought us Injustice, and well, the time period. Yeah,
it was around that time period that Injustice started. So yeah,
they're not canceling that. I mean, they're still telling the story. I wish they wouldn't. I wish
John Kent. Yeah,
they'd stop. But
we get
quit while you're ahead.
Yeah.
But what I mean is they're still telling that, and that's the same time.
Dark Knights of Steel.
Yes,
which is fantastic, by the way.
Shit, man. Some of those side stories. Didn't we get metal? Death metal from New 52 time period, and I mean these are weird sides.
It's in that world, but I'm like,
they're weird side stories, and some of the stuff is kept and some of it isn't. And to me, having Dr. Manhattan tie into everything is clever. You're now taking all these different, because the Watchmen, dude, they're one of my favorite. I wouldn't say comic book team. I don't know what the hell you'd call the Watchmen.
They're not exactly a team, really.
You know what I'm saying?
They're more people who tolerate each other for a common goal. They're kind of like the Legion of Doom in that way.
Yeah, we actually don't like each other, but we're professionals.
Yeah, that's
to an extent. You know, like I mean, the comedian, yada yada yada. Oh, that's another.
The comedian hates everyone.
That's another the Snyder thing with. I used to say he's hit or miss, but he's not. I mean, his breakthrough movie was Dawn of the Dead remake, which nailed it. And then the next movie we get from him is 300, hand in hand made with Frank Miller, who wrote 300, who is Greek and grew up with that story.
I read the comic after watching the movie. It is legit, shot for shot. Dialogue-wise, everything is that is the book right there.
Every image, every profile, every shot. I was literally like, this is freaking 300. I was actually engaged to a Greek girl who was first Jan at the time. So her dad, and he had statues of Leonidas all over the house. I'd get to hear them stories. So then I finally heard the comic and read the comic and then went and saw the movie. Like, that was
my first
great.
Snyder movie, this 300.
Wow, you broke in.
What a movie to start.
Yeah, hella quick.
That's why I was more in line with like Man of Steel, because I was like, okay, it's done by the guy that did 300 and he can do comic book movies, so I'm good.
Oh yeah, you know full well there's gonna be some people, Bianca, Tristan, they're gonna hate this, but to me, Man of Steel, I had no problem with it. I thought Cavill was great. I loved the dark, realistic take on it.
And I knew why he killed Zod, and he's not a murderer because collateral damage happens. That's Tristan's a little extreme with that.
I mean, let's think about it. Is Batman by definition then? Is by definition Batman a murderer because he chooses not to save the criminals from the crashing helicopter?
Oh, and by the way,
no, it's just they made their own bed. He chose to let them die. Like it's like you would have died if I was here or not. You did this.
Robert got angry at me once because I said that Batman is partially responsible for everyone the Joker kills because he won't kill the Joker and just puts him in Arkham Asylum, knowing he's going to break out.
You know, you're just speaking truth. Batman knows this. Batman knows this.
He knows this. He has said it in the comics. So you know what? I'm like, there you go. And it's like, I've actually told people that the Snyder movies for the time period are some of the most comic accurate movies to come out for DC. Because they reflect the way the comics were at the time from Crisis on Infinite Earths to now. That's the time period. And he took from all these different areas and somehow managed to make them meld. He combined the Dark Knight Returns with like regular DC continuity and made it. He actually improved it in my mind. But let's not forget. Whenever I ask people, what's the one thing Snyder did? He made me care about Aquaman.
Yeah.
He made me care about. And plus, let me put it this way. They would not have cast Jason Momoa to play Aquaman if Zack Snyder had not been as forceful, because they would have cast a blonde-haired white guy to play Aquaman because that's the way he is in the comics.
Honestly, I think they would have got the guy who played Orm, Patrick Wilson, Night Owl.
I could see that, but
I think they would have got him. Honestly, he was my push for a new Batman. If they were going to switch, I'm like,
Jason was almost Batman. That's what he auditioned for.
No, I would have probably walked out. I'd have been like, no, okay, can we please stop casting Jason Momoa for everything, for Christ's sake?
Can we talk about how awesome Henry Cavill is as Superman?
I personally thought he was perfect.
He is
absolute.
He's
perfection.
My Christopher Reeves. That's who he is. Well, like this way, because that was the first Superman. I saw the reason, but here's the thing: pre-Snyder and pre-New 52, Superman was not my favorite because I felt he was kind of lame. He didn't because he was like, I'm the big blue Boy Scout who wears his underwear on the outside of his suit. And then when I saw Man of Steel, which is a more realistic take on Superman, it's like, this is what would happen if this character actually showed up. I'm like, okay, I get it now. He's super, because you have, and that's why also I think Injustice is the best Superman story, because you see because it makes you appreciate the good Superman, because he could easily go in this direction, but he chooses not to.
I mean, how many times you get tastes of it, like Hush and certain tastes where you get to see what it's actually like when Clark is pissed off and trying to kill you. Like, even he's still in there fighting it, but he's pissed off and trying to kill you. And that turns, like, I don't know, man. That's the one thing I didn't like about the film when they did the animated version. Well, there's a lot I didn't like about the animated version of Hush, which we are doing on the channel. You're more than welcome to pick somebody and read with us. It's a big team.
I'd love to. It's one of my favorite Batman stories of all time.
Imagine the way you could tell that scene as a horror scene. Now he's in they're in the sewers.
Like
Batman's scared as shit, and then Catwoman's like, "What are you so afraid of?" And he's like, "I don't think you quite understand the trouble we're in right now. Like, this dude isn't Superman. He could crush our skulls with his fingers. He's coming after us, guys. It's a matter of time."
Right there, it's Brightburn.
You could have done it from that scene, from so scary like. And I think I'm going to try to tackle it that way if we can. But my thing is it's they kind of had you get tastes of what he would be. Of what evil Superman would be like. And even in Injustice, he's not evil. It's a little different. I wouldn't call him evil. I wouldn't call him a bad guy.
He's just Wonder Woman was really evil and she corrupted Superman. That's what people don't. Okay, so a lot of people say, okay, so if Superman did, because I did a video, was talking about how the marriage to Lois is stifling Superman stories because it's ultimately the same thing over and over again. He's going to save Lois Lane, so there's no stakes. Yeah. I got blasted for that video. People tell me to go F myself and all that stuff. But anyway, the one commonality reason they give me for Lois Lane, and this is the same reason Robert gives me, she keeps him human. Otherwise, he turns into evil Superman. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. Because when you look at Injustice, first off, in the tie-in comics for DC Online, their massive multiplayer online game, Lois Lane dies. He doesn't turn evil. He broods for a second and mourns, but then he comes back and is Superman. But what you have to understand about Injustice, because they always cite this, Injustice is first off an Elseworld story, so it's not going to go that way. And there was a third actor acting upon him, Wonder Woman, an evil version of Wonder Woman.
Beating it.
Yeah, so I'm like, he would, if he didn't have Lois Lane, New 52, he didn't turn evil.
No, and my thing is they were Injustice is trying to show you that if he stays with Lois, if we keep telling this story, eventually somebody's going to get to him through Lois. She's not invincible. She's a regular human being. She gets shot, she dies. And Superman can't be there all the time to stop every bullet. Yeah. So eventually someone's going to find out. Someone's going to get to her. And if you take the one person he loves and forces his own hand to kill his wife and his child, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No person, alien or not, comes back from that.
That's
you break permanently and you become a new person. And I think it was a very realistic take on also, if Lois died that way, Superman would go brutal on people.
The other issue is that Batman's equally responsible because he pretty much abandoned Clark after that. Because I feel like also had he been there for his friends saying, hey, listen, dude, I get you killed the Joker. It's no big deal. But I'm here for you. I'm going to help you through this because they're supposedly best friends. How'd that happen? Again, he wouldn't have gone that far.
No, but man, Bruce is human. Imagine the shock. Imagine the shock.
Yeah.
When he busts through that cell door and rips his freaking
Joker,
heart out.
Though. It's not like he killed Billy Batson.
But I mean, Batman is in the middle of a conversation. That's all I'm saying. Like, and at the speed of light, the wall busts open, and then now the Joker's choking on his chest and blood and shit everywhere, and Superman's smiling about it. I bet Bruce was in absolute shock. He's just like, that happened so fast. Oh my God, my best friend who's never killed anybody before just killed somebody. And granted, yeah, the Batman should have been like, it was the Joker. He deserved it. I've got nothing. And you did what I couldn't, but.
And he should have also admitted, okay, so this is Clark in a very extreme, a very stressful time. He just lost his wife and his city. Metropolis got nuked. He should have been like, okay, this is not who you are normally. I get that you were it just went to a living hell. So let's collect ourselves here.
Right. Stay calm. But it's not justice if someone dies, but no, honestly, I thought it was really cool. It was one of the coolest images I've ever seen in my head is Superman pissed off with his fist going through Joker's chest and the Joker laughing himself to death. To me, that was perfect. I was like,
that's what I'm saying. Injustice is one of the best Superman stories because it points to this is what he could be, but he's not. That's why and it was kind of funny when I was on Nerd Stream. I said, "Here's the best Superman story, Injustice," and I could see the audible, and I was like, "Let me explain. Let me explain."
No, there's some facts, or not facts, but there's some good points you have behind that. Yeah. It's a very this is what would happen if this happened scenario, and he is as good as he wants to be. He's still human by nature. You know what I mean? Like he's Kryptonian by physicality. But he's human by nature.
52 in the Superman Wonder Woman book, Bruce himself says, listen, dude, there's a reason why I've always felt comfortable working with you. It's because even though you have these fantastical powers, you're an alien from another planet, you were still raised by humans. You still see mankind as your home team. That's why I'm like, yeah, he doesn't saying that he needs Lois Lane or otherwise he turns evil is ignoring the role that John and Martha Kent played in his upbringing.
You're actually negating.
Yeah. You're ignoring that exactly because they raised him to not be that way.
They raised him to be a loving, caring man.
Case in point,
compassion.
Case in point, in the comics, he was Superman before he met Lois Lane. So he was fine. He wasn't an asshole. What are you doing here?
I mean, him and Lana. The only thing I didn't like about the Smallville thing was tying Lex in that close, that early. Lex should have been until he didn't meet him until he moved to Metropolis and things started happening. That was my whole thing, but that's fine. That's totally fine. It's a television show. Other than that, they kind of nailed how it would have been for him growing up. He had to, no matter what, he had to pretend he was a normal teenage kid. And he had all these other things he was going through he couldn't tell anybody about, which then would give you Man of Steel. By the time he's a man, he's kept his identity quiet and had not. How many people's accidents has he allowed to happen because he couldn't show who he was? Yeah, I remember when you guys were talking in Tristan's stream about the tornado scene.
It could have been. I think I'm the only one. A little better. No, I like it, and I explain what happened. But I think that they could have done a better job of showing there's no way that he could save John without revealing his identity. That was the one thing I would change about that scene. But besides that, I got what that was supposed to do.
Yeah, it was basically John Kent sacrificing himself to keep his son safe and to let his son finish growing up. You know what I mean?
And by the way,
finish his life out.
Every version of the comics, I looked this up, John Kent has said, do not reveal your powers yet. They will hunt you. It was kind of funny because in the Flash trailer, and you see Kara's locked up in prison. I'm like, yes. First off, awesome trailer. So awesome movie so far. But second off, she is literally showing this is why John Kent said, do not save me.
Don't save me because they'll find a way and you'll end up in a lab somewhere.
They did that pieces. In the new 52, dude. They tortured Superman.
Yeah. And hell, man, Superman. How many times has Superman been sick and died? We had All-Star Superman, which I guess
he didn't really die.
He didn't really die,
but
they made you think he was.
It made you think.
And then New 52, we got Superman dying from after the Joker poisoning thing.
Which I think would have been the way I would have handled the New 52 Superman, because you already had the pre-crisis guy show up. They should, instead of killing him, they should have had the pre-crisis guy be a mentor to the Earth Prime Superman. So he could become more of the classic Superman, but could also embrace what made him different.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was kind of where I was wanting to go with that, was
Yeah.
to find out that I call it Silver Age Superman.
Yeah,
Silver Age
kind
Superman
of
with
that.
Lois and their son sort of just watched the whole dark side fight, watched everything kind of happen. And when Earth Prime Superman died, that's when Lois finally talked. Silver Age Super, they need you. I know you're not their Superman, but you
Mhm.
are Superman. They need you. And it took Lois, who always wanted to keep Superman to herself a little bit and always was like, I don't want you to go out and die. One day somebody's going to figure out how to kill you, yada, yada.
Mhm.
She took the reverse role and was like,
Mhm.
they need you. You need to do the right
Which,
thing. You
yeah,
need to go
I
to
like
them.
that.
And that was really cool.
It's
They
just
kind of
they
sort of,
shouldn't have completely wiped out the other Superman, because I think
no.
that's just creatively lazy at that point, because you could have told because you could have also kept Superman with Wonder Woman, and then had the Silver Age Superman with Lois Lane for those fans. You could have
Mhm.
given everyone what they wanted and led to some pretty, because when have we ever had one Superman be a mentor to the other one and tell him, hey, you're doing pretty good, this is how I do it on my Earth. Maybe it doesn't translate or something like that.
Right. And maybe this is a different, it obviously is a different Metropolis,
Yeah.
but I thought it was neat though. Like, I didn't like how they kind of just killed him off because of I guess most likely the feedback they had been getting. Like, they're like, okay, well, maybe we need to
But there
fix
are other ways to
Superman.
address
But
that.
there were other ways to address that. Absolutely. I mean, hell, they could have just bamped him to a different Earth, somewhere he might have belonged better. This is where this Superman belongs better. I'll stay
Mhm.
here with my Lois.
Mhm.
Since he had met Lois,
Mhm.
him and Wonder Woman had a fling, which
They
wasn't
had
going to last anyway.
he had met Lois. It's just that they were more of a friendship level.
I mean, she was, if you remember in the writing, she was kind of shitty to him. She was talking
That's just
down
Lois
to him
Lane
a
in
little
general.
bit. Yeah,
That's just
yeah.
here's the thing. That's post-crisis Lois Lane in general, and that's why I genuinely dislike Lois Lane as a character in the comics completely. I'm like, because it's like, even in Heroes in Crisis, and I know people just groan that I just mentioned that storyline. She leaks the like therapy stuff of Sanctuary, knowing that when her husband tells her, don't do this because they could get personal information on us,
Oh,
and she
yeah.
does it anyway. And I'm like, that's why I tell you, she's a horrible person. That's why I just don't like her. But what's kind of funny, going back to this one point I wanted to address before we wrap up, is that you mentioned that okay, so Lois is human, and you would have had eventually someone's going to try and kill her. That's what I thought was going to happen when Bendis revealed the identity. I'm
Oh,
like,
okay, yeah. Well,
you just made the Daily Planet and Lois Lane a target, dude.
yeah, and it.
And
I guess nothing
Smallville.
ever. Yeah, nothing actually came out of that either. It's like, dude, that the thing is I think I kind of agree with you on
Mhm.
the Lois thing.
Yeah.
I understand the point, and I understand that it's been around for so long. This is what people want with Superman. They want him to be with Lois. But there's nothing wrong with a retelling. There's nothing wrong with a modern, let's fix this somehow. If they're going to be a power couple, because technically they are. Lois is the best reporter in Metropolis.
Yeah.
Actually, she's globally known.
Mhm.
Superman is globally known, but Clark Kent is not. Clark
Mhm.
Kent's just a lowly little fucking newsboy who goes over and writes articles from Gotham and stuff. So, and my thing is well, he uses his position, you know what I'm saying,
Mhm.
to put news out and let people know things. But they could have done it, they could retell the story. They don't have to get married and live a certain way. They could live as a more modern couple, live together for a little bit.
Or
There's
just
so many ways you
not
could play with it,
be together or something like that.
or
But
not be
it's kind of
together and
funny.
see how
The
this
rumor
goes.
is Donna Troy was supposed to be the daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman.
Oh,
That's a rumor. I'm not really like 100%,
okay.
but that would have been a cool way to do the origin for that.
And you know what? That was the only time period we actually had Clark and Wonder Woman in a relationship that lasted.
Yeah,
At least an extended time period,
because
which means she probably
I
could
got
have gotten
news to it. They
pregnant.
actually never broke up until he died. They were
Okay,
always
cool.
they went through a rocky period in the Tomasi run, but they still
Yeah.
stayed together throughout the entire thing.
Okay, cool. Because I thought maybe they because I never finished that
Mhm.
whole thing up. I figured
I
maybe
did.
they
I
might
have
have
all the
broke it off.
trades.
They might have broke it
I
off.
endured through the ending part, but yeah, they never broke up. They
Okay,
had
cool.
periods where they had issues, but they never broke up. And then the problem is that near the end, they also tried to say maybe she has feelings for Steve Trevor, and I'm like, oh god damn it.
It's the classics, and maybe that's good. Maybe a New 52 was the time to tell something different. Let's give Clark a different relationship.
Ultimate Universe. There you go.
Let's make Bruce not get involved with Catwoman. You know what I mean? Let's tell all these different types of stories and what could have been, which I also liked about Flashpoint. I really liked Flashpoint.
I love that story.
I don't know how we haven't talked about that, considering that was the birth of New 52. That's what started the whole thing. But I think with the movie that we're going to be getting, maybe we should just come back after the movie comes out.
Because Flashpoint has to be its own episode because there's so much that goes into that.
Because I think we won't be able to discuss that film without talking about New 52.
Oh yeah.
And the question is we know Keaton's in there. So is it Bruce or is it Thomas? Where are we going with this?
I think it says Bruce, but the question is, what comes after? Are we doing New 52 live action?
Exactly.
I would love that. I'm like, hell yeah, let's go.
Maybe. Here's my thing with the animated films, at least the Batman ones. Let's just stick with the Batman ones. The Son of Batman, the way they told that story and the way they trimmed some of the fat. The whole Batman story arc, the whole Bat family story arc we followed, except for Hush. Even the Long Halloween had some issues too. But they have done such a good job as far as the New 52 timeline in those animated films. I'd almost just leave it at that. If I get a live action, some director's gonna screw it up somehow. They're gonna put their own little spin on it, where WB was like, it's not our spin. It's their spin. They're drawing the shit. So, they're just like, well, it's a 2-hour film or an hour and 20-minute film. So let's cut some of this stuff out, or cut some of the comic stuff out that works in the comics. So to me, the live action of some of the New 52, we got some of it, but I think the animated films did way better because they weren't restricted.
Yeah.
Actors, exactly. They could have told the story the way they wanted to tell. And if it flopped, it flopped. Like they were just kind of like, it's an animated film. We're selling comics. We don't care.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do kind of agree. It'd be nice to see some more New 52 stories implemented. Because
there's too many of those storylines that were actually well liked. I guarantee you we'll get a live action Court of Owls maybe in the Matt Reeves universe at some point. They set that up so well in the Matt Reeves universe. There's no way we don't do the Court of Owls at that point.
I mean, when we got Matt Reeves, we got Court of Owls meets
Hush.
Definitely Hush.
On
you can't
the
avoid
TV screen, they have the Hush thing.
You can't avoid it.
And the journalist's name is Elliot. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing there.
The way he started off, October 24th, something. We're getting a little Long Halloween. They tied so many in there with only one villain. Wasn't 100% crazy about the Riddler, but I noticed that towards the end, they made him very Riddler. So at first, I thought he was kind of John Doe from Seven. Like he's a little Seven-ish, a little serial killer, where I kind of like the Arkham series reboot on the Riddler, how he's kind of the nerdy hacker, burglary guy behind the screen. Yeah. Hyper-focused on himself and how smart he is. I thought they should have went in that direction. I really do. Instead of the Seven hiding behind the mask.
And my one problem with the Batman, kind of thing. The one problem with the Batman is the pacing. I think the pacing is horrendous.
It's slow.
It's the Snyder cut feels shorter than the Batman. That says something. I've actually watched that movie 12 times.
Me too. And I'm not gonna lie,
it's my favorite DC movie of all time.
Pattinson nailed it. I had no beef with him. I've been
fantastic.
Impressed with him. I've been
he
impressed
was better
with
than
him
I thought it was
going to
be as Batman, honestly.
But for me, it was Jeffrey Wright. Jeffrey Wright as Gordon,
fantastic. Oh my gosh. Them two together, I'm like, yeah, I buy that this is a Batman and Gordon that have worked together for so long. I buy that.
He did so good. And I know there was a lot of flack with that, like people just swapping things around. But my thing is I noticed the Batgirl, was it a television show, right? Batgirl series got completely canceled. Like they filmed it.
The movie,
and it was just like, and so I'm seeing images of it. And I'm looking at it like, well, she looks like she might be mixed race girl, light skinned African American.
Well, remember,
or mixed.
That wasn't.
Are they going from Matt Reeves Batman with that Gordon? I went, well, now it makes sense. Why would they cancel this? Like, I don't know.
That the Batgirl movie was not going to be in that universe because in that universe we had the SnyderVerse Jim Gordon.
Oh, okay. So then it wouldn't. So they weren't even going with Barbara Gordon. Batgirl, I guess it might have been.
They were. They were still going with Barbara Gordon.
Okay, well then maybe that's a little weird.
That's
Maybe they probably should have scrapped that and start over. Like, okay, if we're gonna do Batgirl, let's start over. They pick the right.
Well, they had to
one,
scrap
know
it because it was tied too much into like the other movies, to like the direction that they're not going anymore. With like Michael Keaton being Batman and being the main Batman, so they're like, well, that's not gonna happen. They can't just reshoot it with Affleck. Which I hope we get like some form of the Affleck movie where it's him fighting Deathstroke. Because it's basically a live action version of that Arkham Origins trailer.
Okay. That was such a teaser at the end of the Snyder cut too. I mean, that was at the end of the Justice one too, but it was such a teaser.
Identity. I'm like,
no, they didn't want that. And they finally, I mean, I wasn't crazy about Eisenberg's. Let's be real. I thought Eisenberg would be a great Riddler.
Okay, I could see that. He would have been a good Riddler.
For Lex, I was very disappointed. I almost would have rather Joe Magalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalangalanga and put on a suit and him be Lex. I hate to say it, but Lex was a fine specimen of a man. He wasn't some skinny little broken kid that's twitchy. He worked out. His body was in good shape. His mind was in good shape.
But there are versions of Lex that are the Eisenberg version of Lex, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I noticed
like
maybe
Birthright,
like,
I think.
Okay. You know what? Yeah, you might be right. But he still wasn't short and tiny and
Still
skinny.
wasn't
He
short
was
and tiny, but I kind of got
that was my only beef.
It's kind of funny when I was debating Nerdette on BVS. I asked her, what version did she watch? She watched the version where they didn't explain it. She watched the theatrical version. I'm like, that's your problem right there. You didn't watch the because when she said, well, they should have explained this. They did in the 3-hour version. They literally did.
The DC is much better. The director's cut, I don't know why they did that. Like, I don't know why they cut so much out in the first place.
Because
it's
what
like
they wanted to do is have more showings. But I'm like, but you compromise the movie.
You compromise
everyone
the
said,
of the movie. Yeah.
Everyone I've shown the ultimate. But first off, I haven't watched the theatrical version like in years. I only watched the ultimate because you want the version that's actually the movie.
Yeah.
But every time I show this, and people are like, okay, this actually makes a lot more. They explain why Clark didn't see the bomb in the wheelchair.
Yeah. Why did they leave that out? I don't understand. Like,
it makes Superman look stupid.
I've watched the extended version so many times. I don't even really remember the theatrical version. So now it's like I just assume that everybody knows that it was lined with lead, and I assume there was all these more explanations that were going on. No, most people watched the theatrical version and never went back. And I'm like,
before we log off, I'll bring this up. I kind of screwed myself. Is that for April Fools, I'm watching the Whedon cut and comparing it, and and for April Fools, I actually have to act like I'm a fan of the Whedon cut. I'm like, no. Which I'm like, it'll be interesting after watching the actual version of Justice League 12 times. But I'm like,
that's interesting. No, that's interesting. You've now intrigued me. Now I think I might do the same thing. Except
you should do that.
Be the original Resident Evil movies. I'm gonna sit and pretend I enjoy all of them. Like, these are so good. I can't wait.
They're interesting. They're fun for what they are.
No, they're not. Anyway.
This was a great episode. Dead Guy, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on my channel, Dead Guy Productions. I'm sure if we'll share a link in the description or something like that. You guys feel free to hop over. Actually, this Saturday, I've got a second show if you'd like to stop in, if you have some time. It starts at about 12:30-ish. I've been doing what's called Coffee and Cigarettes. And it's basically me just playing like a point and click game or something on screen, but people call in. And we just chat and discuss whatever. It doesn't matter. Cool. Usually not a topic unless we just pick one and go. But it's kind of like, think of it like a coffee shop. Come in, grab a coffee, sit down, smoke a cigarette, chat, and go do your thing if you want. But that's kind of new. So if you want to hop in and discuss things, I think I got a couple podcast people calling in this Saturday. So.
And I could be showing up on your channel for a few other projects. But
absolutely. Yeah, we'll talk about that. I know that me and you had discussed the Crime Syndicate Forever Evil. So that is, dude, I want to do that so bad. I've already been working on my Ultraman voice. So yes, I'm actually really excited. And I've got an English guy that might be jumping in to help us. So I'm going to give him Power Ring for sure. But either way, beside the point, we will talk about that through our DMs.
Heck yeah. All right. And stay at work, everyone. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.